Hello again, everybody. I want to thank you to another Rewind review, and this one is of a whole new product. This one is of one of the first, and maybe the first, major out-of-the-studio television production that was in the same city, done every week from a big building. We were kind of ahead of our time.
Yeah, Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham. What was the capacity?
Capacity is about 7,000 people. That's what's in this first television
Right.
show. So instead of seeing your television, your studio with 150, 200 people, you got 7,000 in this one.
Right.
And you could tell.
Yeah.
There-
Well, you know,
there
one of
is
the
a
things I wanted to
monstrous
mention, the
difference.
first thing that caught my eye, is I had never seen this show before, was the video package that opened it, with the fans
There you go.
streaming in. But it was, hey, we're seeing something that's, everybody's excited. That was
It
the thing.
set the stage.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah,
beautiful opening. It set the stage. This was done on the 15th of June in 1985.
And then the long shot, that when it finally came to Gordon, he was like a speck.
Yeah.
So you knew
It
you were in a
showed
large
you,
building.
it showed
yeah.
you the capacity and
Yeah.
where you are, and this is a major event.
Right.
And what the big deal was is it wasn't just a major event one time, like some territories.
Right,
Charlotte, for instance, Mid-Atlantic would do these big events, and then they would record
Like
it.
Greensboro Coliseum.
Greensboro,
Sure.
but this is every television. This is what you're going to get every time you see a
Right.
TV, and the impact of it was pretty amazing. I mean, I hadn't seen this show in 36 years.
I had never seen it, and it was.
It was impressive.
I think it helps get the fans watching it on television a little excited, because you can feel the excitement in the building.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not just like you say, it's not your normal TV studio crowd, but you've got 7,000 people that that
rumble,
rumble,
and that roar
yes.
is there. The big
Yeah.
pops are there that you're not going to get
Yeah,
from a studio
absolutely. And then,
crowd.
of course, I have to come out of the great video opening, long shot of Gordon, he come, and then the National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion comes to death. So where do you go from there? But down, basically, right? You start with the top man in the industry.
So
So yeah.
So to give a little history to fans out there that may not know, Southeastern Wrestling started in Knoxville. Was there for 5 years.
1974.
In 1978, before it finished in 1979, we opened Southeastern in Pensacola, a separate territory. Now we closed Knoxville in '79, sold it. You were
Barnett.
involved with that with Jim Barnett. Pensacola became Southeastern Wrestling, and it stayed that way until we reached a point here in about 1984 when Vince Jr. begins to take over wrestling. He wants to take over wrestling in
Sure.
all the territories, and I saw that happening, and I said, we have to do something like he does. We have to do something from a big building, a major arena. We have to become a major product in the country. Change the name from Southeastern Regional Operation to Continental, indicating maybe you're out there across the entire country. So what we did is put together this great concept. We brought in Gordon Solie, who had not, he had done some Southeastern stuff down in Pensacola, just
Right.
like you had. But this was his first scene for probably 4 years since he'd been seen on any type of Southeastern show.
Right.
So we changed the name to Continental, and I decided, this wasn't by accident that Ric Flair's there that night. I said, let's open this up with Ric Flair. He's going to be in Birmingham. He's actually wrestling Bob Armstrong that night.
Sure.
And I said, let's open this up and have our first Continental Championship Wrestling show with the world champion on it. Not only just being there, as you said,
Right.
introducing the program, basically with Gordon having some nice things to say to build this brand new company, Continental
Right.
Championship Wrestling. And then he's actually going to work.
Yeah.
He goes out and he works in the very first match on Continental Championship Wrestling.
And all I can say is poor Josh Stroud.
Yeah.
Because the kid is an ex-pro football player. He looks physically, obviously, he looks great. You can't miss that. But I have made a note. He is green as grass. Flair is nervous. he is, I won't say frightened of Rick physically, but I'm in with the world champion, I'm on television, and I'm not sure what the hell I'm doing. And he didn't have to say it out loud, I can tell, because Rick basically picking him up to knock him back down again. Right?
He was intimidated.
Yes.
He was extremely intimidated.
Yes.
And, you know, not only that, but he sees those cameras out there. And you got that handheld camera. I don't think we mentioned this. You've got 2 cameras on the stage. You've got a handheld camera that's right there at the apron.
Right.
And a lot of times those guys took great chances.
Yeah, and you can see him pop up occasionally.
He would jump up on the apron sometimes. And I would always get scared, hey, somebody's going to get this dude.
Right.
You know, but he would get these shots that nobody was getting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right there, 5 feet away from the 2 guys. And then you had a camera in the stands. And this is back to when we had our first USA show and we talked about the problems. There was a problem with that one camera in the stands.
Opening night jitters or whatever.
There you go, and that's what it had. The camera had a jitter. It was the camera in the stands was a little bit intimidated itself, and it kept doing this. And a smart director there, if people pay attention to this, they'll see that little jiggle when they get that long shot. And when you get that long shot, that's obviously the camera that's in the stands. Yeah. Some of that jiggle came from the crowd because there's so much noise up there and so much activity. You know, got a little jiggle, and the director would switch to another camera pretty quickly.
Let me give you a little background, my background with Flair. When I first met Ric Flair, he was just about a year into the business. He broke in Minneapolis with Vern Gagne, where a lot of the top guys broke in. But he came to the Carolinas just barely a year into the business. He was still a rookie. I was like the 3rd guy to wrestle him there, right? And we were in the old Richmond Fairgrounds Coliseum, and Joe Murray, the promoter, comes in and said, Les, you got the new kid from Minneapolis. My first thought was one of the stiff guys from Vern, because
Vern's guy.
He had so many, you know, good amateurs, right? So you figure this guy can be stiff. Anyway, so what do you want to do? So I first met Ric Flair in the middle of the ring in Richmond that night, and you know, I called the match opposite because he was green. And when I got to the back, separate dressing room, the match went okay. I thought, wow, this kid's not bad. So a couple of baby faces said, how was the new kid? And I think I made the most gross understatement I ever made in 61 years in this business. I said, he's going to be all right. So he became all right. a little better than all right. Yeah. But you know, again, he wasn't nature boy at that point. George Scott came up with the idea. Rick weighed about 280, 285 at that time. So once people, like you see him here, a champion at about 240, so he's dropped 40, 45 pounds and gotten much better shape. But anyway, George Scott came up with the idea of turning him into the Nature Boy. George set him down, had him looking at Buddy Rogers' films over and over and over and over. Put him with Rip Hawk to teach him tag wrestling, because you know that's a different psychology, and Rip was a master of that. Plus to make him a better heel, Rip. My job, because I was coordinating all the promos was George, me. As long as Flair is flowing, as long as the promo is going good, let him run. The minute he gets sidetracked, shut him down, bring him back, and start him over. So this was part of building him into what you people see as the world champion. And so, yeah, he and I go
There's a big process to that.
It was.
You don't get to be a world champion
No,
without a
no.
heck of a lot of people having a portion of that and part of that product.
And you know, we're talking about this kid Stroud being green, and of course it's obvious that he is. In a house show without television, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is not going to go 3 minutes, because Flair's going to realize the kid can't work, and I'm going to shut him down because I'm not. But I realized you had given him X number of minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And so he was going to get you those X number of minutes, regardless of how hard he was going to have to work.
He did a good job of it.
Yeah, he covered all right. Let me ask you, I was thinking here too, did your referees have earpieces to get time?
No.
No?
No.
So it was hit and miss there too, about a minute, this one way or the other.
But you did notice that Mike Jackson was the ring announcer.
5 down,
5 minutes.
5 to go.
He would always the 5 minutes. He would give you every 5 minutes. So, you know. And most guys being professional, that's all you need.
Well,
you
the
can
old
pretty
ring,
well
sure.
hit that 8 minute mark.
Sure.
12
the old
mark.
ring, back in the 60s, 70s, you had a timekeeper, everybody did. And if it was 20-minute time limit, they'd say 5 down, 15 to go, 10 down, 10 to go, and so forth. And then that last 5, if you were going, they'd count it down, 4 to go, 3 to, and so forth. So yeah, if you were a pro, you knew how to handle it. You'd get it off within a minute, one way or the other.
So, then we had a video. I think
Stars of the NWA, a film with Bob Armstrong.
Another great video.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. I mean, it went right along with that program. You're seeing all those thousands of people, and in that video, a lot of that was shot in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Some of it was shot in
Right.
Mobile. Some of it was shot in other markets. But the business was so good. It was big time back in those days, and all of those things, every one of those matches and those pieces of matches they showed was great.
Now I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to have to give me the answer because I couldn't figure it out. Humongous was standing just off of Bob's shoulder, never uttered a word. I think maybe something I couldn't catch right at the very end. But why was he on that promo?
Because Humongous had been, and we're backing up here a little bit, but that's what we need to do to get people to where we are.
Understand what they're
Okay,
seeing,
so I had started the stud stable. I was a heel. Bob Armstrong had turned on me. He ended my career. I retired. I was gone for 8 months. Bob turned a heel, first time in his career ever. And then when
that was in Mobile.
that was in Mobile in the World Championship match with Ric Flair.
Yeah.
I was the referee for Ric Flair and I in Mobile, Alabama in 1982, and he turned heel in this match. And then for months I quit. I retired and didn't wrestle at all. And finally Bob turned into such an ass. He was such a tremendous heel. He did everything. He changed his entire personality, and he smoked cigarettes on the TV, and he grew himself a mustache. He had a girlfriend named Fannie Mae Tidweiler. I mean, it just went on and on and on. He slapped Brad, his own son, on television, and then he slapped Charlie Platt, who was a commentator. And then I came back months later, out of retirement, and came back. Then Bob wanted to be my partner. I got into it, and I would have nothing to do with him. He was still a heel. He turned back babyface. He went to Atlanta, and he screwed his face up.
Oh,
that's a horrible accident.
Yes, yeah.
And he didn't look like himself anymore. And he came back to Southeastern, and he said, and I'm in a big angle with Arn Anderson and Jerry Stubbs, Mr. Olympia. They are the tag team champions. I'm trying to beat them. I brought in Andre. I brought in everybody. And Bob comes back and he says, I want to be your partner, Ron. And I get the hell out of here, right? I have nothing to do with it.
Right.
But he's a babyface. Fans have forgiven him, but I didn't. Anyway, we finally get into the match with me and him. And I turn. I get my chance and I turn on him this time. I get my stud stable going. Humongous is one of my guys. Flame on this show is one of my guys.
Right.
Boomer Lynch, who is in one of those interviews on this show, is one of my guys. Jimmy Golden is one of my guys. Arn Anderson becomes one of the stable. I put all these stars into my stable. And Bob, then he eventually has to go back, and we beat him. We beat him in a loser leave. He puts on his mask. He becomes the Bullet. All of that stuff goes on. But at this point, Humongous had turned babyface on me.
Okay.
I had a problem with Humongous, and he turned babyface on me. That's why he's standing behind Bob.
Okay.
Bob has the Southeastern belt in this interview that people are going to see in here, and behind him stands Humongous, who is a pretty impressive individual.
Yeah, right.
The Alabama belt he carried on a string around his neck.
Right.
It hung from his chest. And he's the Alabama champion. And one of the most unusual matches probably ever done, it's me and the Flame wrestling against two champions in a tag match. And if we win the match, we win both their belts. Because I wanted to be the greatest manager of all time. And I needed to get all those belts.
Yeah.
Okay? So,
you know what?
Kind of,
Let's, for somebody that doesn't understand, we mentioned Bob's accident. And it was either Huntington or Charleston, West Virginia. I forget. They were on tour with Georgia. He was in a gym. He was doing bent arm pullovers, which he's laying with his head hanging off a flat bench, and he's pulling enough weight to where the bench tipped with him. He lost control of the bar, and it came down and clipped him, almost cleaned his nose completely off his face.
Broke his face,
Yes.
broke the bones in his
Yes.
face, and it just changed his life. And you know, he was out of wrestling for
Right.
a considerable length of time, and then he came back, and that's kind of the way we worked the Southeastern. This was all prior to Continental.
Right.
But that's why Humongous is standing behind Bob.
Okay.
He's a champion. He's the Alabama
Because they
champion.
never mentioned it.
And Bob is the Southeastern.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have to. Bear in mind that for people who had been watching Southeastern,
Yeah.
they knew everything that was going on.
They didn't know I was gonna watch it, not know.
There you go. You know, so
Okay.
Everybody that's watching this never seen Continental. They, you know, we're trying to
Right.
bring you up to date on kind of what was happening at
And
the
then
time. Right?
coming out of there, it's you and the Flame in ring pro. Now, that's something
Yeah.
that's going on here that we'd never used in the studio things,
Yeah.
right? Was that we would do separate interviews, but using one studio versus another studio. But these guys are already in the ring, so it's just a matter of your camera people making a switch.
And how much more impact does that create?
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, you've got two guys standing on the stage, the crowd hears their interview, and then you throw it to the ring, and you
Sure.
got your heels in the ring, and wow, it just, everything about this show is big time.
Yeah.
It's really getting more
It-
out of it than
it-
anybody
It
normally
adds
gets.
another dimension.
A whole nother dimension.
Yeah.
That big building and all that adds another dimension. Another thing I want to mention too at this point is fans, if you don't watch these shows, you don't realize what you're missing. If you just watch a little bit of this and you don't get to the end.
Right.
For instance, it starts with Ric Flair, and then there's a world champion match. He's not for the title, but he's in the first match.
Right.
You got me, you got the Flame that's going to be on that.
Right.
And at the end of this program, you got the best match on the card. You got Jimmy Golden for the Southeastern Championship against Austin Idol.
Yeah.
And a crowd that 7,000 people that are really
into it. Yeah.
That are really into it.
Which makes it easier for us in the ring as well as it does for the viewing audience, because if the crowd's into it, they pick you as a viewer up.
They
and take
inspire you.
Yes.
They give you that inspiration to do things that you don't normally even
Right,
do.
right.
You know, and
Right.
and it just, and then you get better, and the crowd gets bigger,
Right.
and you get better, and all of that grows and grows.
And then you're talking about this. Jason Walker is in a match with the Flame. The Flame was Jody Hamilton, who Jody passed away. Was it last? It's been 2 years.
Been recently.
Yeah,
Fairly
yeah.
recently.
But Joe was a great creator. We were talking before we started taping this. He and his brother Larry Hamilton, the Missouri Mauler, who I've wrestled in several territories over the years. At the time, Jody was the youngest wrestler to appear in a feature match in Madison Square Garden at the time.
Yeah.
He and Larry were, I forget who they wrestled, but Joe was only 18 years old, and that would have been around 1958 or 1959.
Yeah, I think he told me one time it was Bruno and somebody.
Yeah.
Bruno and somebody in that match,
Yeah.
main event in Madison Square Garden, 18 years old.
But watching,
So-
Joe was, God, I don't know what he weighed at this point, 300 pounds?
He was big, but Joe was always big. He's
Yeah.
not a lot different in size, and for his size, he was one of the quickest and
Yeah,
best
yeah.
big men that
Oh, yeah.
ever worked.
I worked with him and Tom as early as 1963 in the Carolinas when they were the Bolos.
Yeah. So he's a great talent. And at the end of this show, Gordon Solie is going to plug that next week there's a video, and it's going to be about a training session with the Flame.
Right.
And we call him the Flame for obvious reasons. He throws the fire.
Yeah.
And he's going to throw the fire 2 or 3 times during this Continental run.
Right.
And and this you want to make sure next week to tune in, because you're going to see the strangest video probably ever shot in wrestling. I mean, Flame is in a angle with Bob Armstrong with Bullet
Right.
at this point. That's why it's me and him in the ring, and Bob and Humongous standing up there on the stage. He has been going back and forth with Bob for the Southeastern Heavyweight Championship, and he just it becomes, Flame is going to go off in this next little video
Next
show.
week.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Gotcha.
so then we've got the match there with Jason Walker and the Flame.
Yeah.
And Flame took no mercy on him.
No,
I mean,
he didn't.
wow, he dropped a big knee in his face toward the end of it. I was thinking, whoa, my goodness. You know, he had no pity for this boy,
No.
for sure. And, you know, he got himself over, and that's what needed to be done.
Then we
You know?
came to Gordon at the desk with Pork Chop Cash and Scott Armstrong.
Right.
And,
And in the ring was Boomer Lynch and Bill Ash.
yes, okay, that was the name I couldn't catch. Gordon says, we're with Bill Ash, and I got
Boomer
question mark.
Boomer Lynch was another one of my wrestlers, another guy in my stable. We said he was from South Africa, you know.
Where was he from,
You know,
legitimately?
and I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I never asked him, you know. And he said, "Ron, what do you want me to be?" I said, "I want you to be Boomer Lynch." And where am I from? You're from South Africa. So, you know, but
Gotcha.
Boomer was a pretty good worker, pretty good big man. And so, you know, you're seeing a lot of talent in this show here. You're seeing Pork Chop Cash. You're seeing Bill Ash.
And, well, you know, let's Bill Ash, his father, a gentleman named Clifford Macias made my boots, who made Flair's boots. He passed away a number of years ago. I don't know if Bill's dad is gone, but Bill's dad, I would say, made some of the best.
Made my
wrestling.
boots. Made boots for me too.
He
After
made
my
the
first
best bed.
Australian boots that I had made.
Yeah.
And he copied my Australian boots, and he started making guys boots with the little patches, the color in the sides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bill Ash's dad was a great boot, and Bill Ash was one of the best junior heavyweights in the business. He used to have tremendous matches.
I know.
Him and Brad Armstrong. Brad was starting out, and we put him with Bill Ash, and they opened up cards every night.
Bill,
So,
you know,
you can imagine what kind of matches you had
Sure.
after those boys were in there.
yeah, Bill, I first met Bill in the Carolinas, but well before that would have been, in the early 70s, I guess, yeah. And, yeah.
Great little worker.
He
great
was,
little worker.
he was.
Great little worker. A bunch of great talent on this show there. And then I'm on this one, and I wrestled a guy named Larry
Yeah,
Clark.
and when I saw that, I said, Larry Clark, I'm praying for you, because you're wrestling. Because
First night, Big Blue
that.
TV, you know, yeah. I mean,
Poor Larry Clark.
yeah, so, well, you know.
But
it
now,
could have been worse for him.
when did you start using a pile driver for a finish?
I never used a pile driver for a finish normally. You know, I just did what I wanted to do. I went out there.
That's when you're the promoter.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
You don't answer to anybody.
I'd kind of gotten away from using the fuller leg lock because it fit a baby face better than a heel. So, you know, and I wouldn't, and obviously a pile driver is a good heel move. So this particular match I won with a pile driver. Then you've got
Gordon
the
with
third interview, and you've got the Nightmares.
Yeah. And
Another great team.
Yeah.
Hell of a team, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Danny Davis went on to start Ohio Valley Wrestling, where Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, to name two that you're gonna, a bunch of guys that wrestle for WWE currently today or some other major promotions have been through OVW.
We trained through there, and
Yes.
And Danny Davis was trained by my dad.
Yeah.
On his ranch in Bolivar, Tennessee. So Danny Davis, and you've got the other one is Wayne.
Yeah.
And you know, they make a tremendous team. Wow! Over the next 2 years, that team is going to have some of the greatest matches with the Riches, with a lot of different babyface teams. They're a tremendous team.
And now the Rat Patrol, that was Scott Armstrong and Johnny Rich, right?
Yeah.
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 And now,
And Steve was in that thing too sometimes. Steve Armstrong.
Steve Armstrong. He's on an interview later on.
Yes, Steve's on this show.
Now, let me explain this to me. The Nightmares get their belts back. Why?
I think they had lost their belts in some type of match in which they were held up.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't remember exactly what they were doing because we were doing so many things with them.
Because Gordon gave them the belts back at the end of this
and
promo.
Gordon gave them and then they had hurt Johnny Rich, and it showed how they hurt him as in a cage match. They showed the cage match.
Right.
I think that cage match was done in Dothan, Alabama, and it showed Steve climb over the top of the cage.
And I hated that, by the way.
But then they covered the fact that this cage match had a different set of rules. It was if you could get out of the cage, you won the match. Okay? So Steve climbed out of the cage so that he and his brother won the match. Johnny would, He and Scott
Scotty,
won the match. And when that happened, the Nightmares weren't dummies. You know, they let him go. And when he got out, then they wouldn't let him back in, and they both took care of his brother. They hurt his
Right.
They hurt Johnny actually in this match, and that's where Tommy Rich is going to end
The
up
next,
coming in.
yeah.
I mean, there's just a flow of talent through this
Yeah.
through Continental.
Yeah,
now
there's
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then the next is the promo you're talking about was Scott Armstrong and film of Tommy Rich with Freddie Miller, who worked with us in Atlanta. Freddie was a big part of the Atlanta office. And film of the Nightmares, which shows the whole breakdown.
And Freddie's going to actually be part of Continental. He's going to
Oh, yeah.
eventually come into
Oh,
Monday
cool.
nights into Birmingham, and he's going to be the second commentator in the back dressing room. We'll have a second set. On this show, there's another set that's in the dressing room, and Gordon does a piece on this set, this third set. So, you know, there's a lot going on in this television program that people
And
don't
then
see.
I guess we're going to call it the main event for the TV. The Southeastern Championship is on the line. Jimmy Golden is the champion, and Jimmy is a heel at this point in time versus Austin Idol, and Idol ends up winning the title. Jimmy carried him to a good match.
They had a great match.
Yeah.
They had a great match, and gosh, the building stood and standing up. I mean, you couldn't get any better ending of your TV show than that. They did the interview on the end. Idol's there saying, "I got the belt." He's all sweaty. He's obviously just wrestled. You got Golden in the ring going, "Oh no, you can't beat me. You didn't do it." You know, it just, this program, this TV was so ahead of its time by being in that big building and having that atmosphere of thousands and thousands of people rather than a couple of hundred in the studio, that it set it apart from other companies. It wasn't long after we did this first show that I had a company out of Houston, Texas that saw one of my programs, and they came to me and said, "We'd like to take you into the Middle East. We want to take your Continental show to the Middle East, to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Arab Emirates."
Wow.
They started naming these countries, and I said, "Yes, let's do it." They actually then said to me, "We want you to go to New York with us. We want to see if we can get you on national television." And I went to New York, went into NBC, and I had a shot at getting the television, and I changed. I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I was afraid of what was going to happen to me with all of my friends, all my NWA promoters, and how was I going to be able to?
Can I remind you, that's the second time you've passed up. And let me remind you the first time. Now, this is when I first got cable television in Knoxville. And I guess it ended up, I don't forget what the channel was called at the time, but Nick Gould's Nashville TV was on there. And I happened to see it a couple weeks. And I came, you and I sat down and I said, "Our production and our TV is 10 times better than this show. Let's contact," I don't know if it was USA, it wasn't the same, it turned into USA, I think, but it wasn't called All Americans Network or whatever it was at the time. And Ron's answer to me was, "Well, we're not going to run there, so why would we want to be on there?" And of course, that was true, that wasn't the point, but had we have gotten on there, we'd have been one step ahead of everybody else in terms of cable, you know, getting picked up on the cable.
Back in those days, I mean, wrestling was about to change.
Oh, sure.
Everything was going to change, and you know, I felt like if I went to New York and I got on the national hookup and I had a national show, how all of my other fellow promoters in the NWA going to look at me?
Right.
It's like, what is he going to do here? You know,
Sure.
Is he going to do what Vince did? I would have never done that. It wouldn't have happened. I would have not handled it that way. I wouldn't have said, "I want to own all of your business," because I have the capability of doing it. But so anyway, these are some of the behind the scenes things that you know rarely talk about, and you know. But
there's nothing wrong with it.
But it's that day and time when all this was going down.
It's part of the history of our industry and why some things ended up shaped the way they were, because something happened here that you couldn't follow or didn't want, you know. And yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But I think that's what the fans watching us on this, you know, they're getting behind the scenes stuff they couldn't get otherwise.
And then this show, you know, it's everything in it to me. Once I watch it back 36 years later, I'm like, wow, man, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Then it closes with a cage match in progress. That's in the ring. I mean, you can't do that on a regular TV.
No, yeah, it's
Your
Gordon,
main event.
Gordon has Iowa with a promo, winning the title, in ring, Jimmy Golden's promo, and then right into the cage match.
Yeah, he says, here's what we got next week, and then thank you for being here, and then wham, they go to the present match that's in progress, a cage match, and that last 2 minutes of the close is they run the credits over a cage match in which the fans are just going crazy.
He's mentioned the Flame for next week, and he's plugged next week.
He's plugged out all of it. He's set it up.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, after watching it, you know, 36 years later, I'm like, I was blown away. I was like, I remember this being good.
And it was a whole, in 1985, it was a whole different house. I mean, TV's presentation.
Yeah.
Because everybody was basically using studio.
It was something totally different than anybody was doing in the country, and it just I was really proud of it. It's a cool deal. So basically, you got anything else?
That's number one Continental. We'll be doing number two next week, and on. We want to mention that Dinner with a Stud number 2 is this month. In fact, just 3 weeks away, roughly. November the 24th, Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, 7 to 9, $30. You can go to tnstud.com and click on Stud Store to make your reservations. You free autographed pictures, great door prizes, your meal, barbecue buffet, which was very good.
Tremendous.
Yes. The first hour will be a stud cast, and our guest will be Jimmy Golden / Bunkhouse Buck. So whichever way, we got, you know, we'll get covered there. And then the second hour will be Q&As with the fans at the dinner. And had a great time the last time, and looking forward to this one.
A lot of fun, and you know, I really appreciate everybody showing up. Gosh, had a big crowd, and hopefully we will again. And the fact that it's the night before Thanksgiving, I think that's perfect ways to start your Thanksgiving vacation off.
Warm up in that turkey with some barbecue.
There you go. Come down to one of the best restaurants in the country in a beautiful setting on the Tennessee River. You can see Neyland Stadium from there, and
it's a great time.
It's a great time.
And then that Saturday night, Ron and I are going to be in, guess where? Danridge, Tennessee, at the Field of Dreams Activity Center for wrestling. It's going to be a great night. Bell time is at 8 p.m. That's Saturday, November the 27th. And the Tim Horner Cup, which is the culmination of a tournament that's been running with his 2 title matches are on this show. And we're going to be signing autographs and doing a Q&A session before the show begins. And if you want advance tickets, you go to WeFightStrong.com for your advance tickets. And that's, again, Saturday, November the 27th. Join us for dinner on the 24th at Calhoun's on the River in Knoxville. Then come on down to Danridge on the 27th and see a wrestling show at Field of Dreams Activity Center in Danridge.
Danridge is I don't know if you know this, Danridge, I saw a sign outside the Danridge, it's one of the most historic cities in Tennessee.
It's the oldest?
It's the oldest city in Tennessee, I think it says. And it's just a few miles outside of Knoxville.
Yeah.
So
Actually, it's about a 40-minute drive from Knoxville, from where I live in Knoxville to Danville. So, yeah.
Danridge is a beautiful town. Come out and check us out on the 27th, and be sure and watch these Continental Championship Wrestling shows. As I said earlier, don't be afraid to, don't be jumping out of it at the first match, because you're going to miss something big time. Because most TVs back in the day, the biggest match was always the last match.
Right.
So just make sure you watch all of these. I think you're going to be really impressed with these Continental.
And once again, real quick, the 24th, join us for dinner. 27th, Danridge for good wrestling, and hope to see you. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you all very much.